frustrated by worsening insecurity amidst wild criticism of government's inability to protect the citizenry. Minister of Defense Major General Bashir Magashi, retired yesterday, called for God's intervention in the fight against insurgents and other criminal elements in the country. The resort to divine intervention came on the heels of reported military airstrikes in the northeast, which were said to have routed scores of terrorists. The terrorists had allegedly fired mortar bombs at civilian targets in Gujba local government area of Yobe State recently. That was as security situation in the country continued to deteriorate, with armed extremists striking at will, kidnapping many, and killing scores. However, breathing a sigh of relief, Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Zulum said the recent mass surrender of over 35,000 Boko Haram and ISWAP fighters and commanders was a result of divine intervention following prayers from all over the world. Tundu.
Well, yes, I'll start with the silver lining here in the news, the mass surrender of 35,000 Boko Haram ISWAP fighters and commanders that you just said. And Governor Babagana Zulum attributes that to prayers and also calls for peace by various leaders. So he thinks that the non-kinetic methods, if I could borrow that phrase that we've heard so often, have been working because the surrender was not occasioned by any kind of military intervention. It wasn't like the army managed to rout them and arrest them, no. So it was something else that's causing them to, lay down their arms. I don't know whether to be comforted by that or worried by that. And secondly, what happens now that they have surrendered? Because, we've been told that when they surrender, they are given safe landing, sort of some kind of, what's it called, Operation Safe Corridor. And, the jollof rice you've often complained of, and the ashrabi and what have you. And a lot of us do find that distasteful because they did commit crimes against the state. They have killed, they have damaged property, they've abducted people, they've destroyed lives. So that the fact that they're given some kind of, warm welcome back into the fold of society really does, offend people, quite frankly. So I want to know what happens next with those who have surrendered. And the fact that there are 35 surrendered people makes me also wonder what exactly is the kind of force that we're talking about here. How many of them are there? Because with the bandits, we're often told it's just some ragtag bunch of people. And now we're being told, now they're numbering in their thousands. How many Boko Haram fighters are we looking at? Is our military outnumbered at this point? Because 35,000 surrendering, and yet the insecurity continues. So they still have quite a few fighters, quite a few commanders. So that does raise that question. With regards to calls for divine intervention, it does tend to suggest that every other strategy has failed. It does tend to suggest that you really have no other options. I hope that's not the case. I hope that everything has been done to rid Nigeria of terrorism, and that the calls for divine intervention, I don't know, I guess as some kind of spiritual support. But it doesn't exactly sound the greatest note of confidence, I have to say. And I do wish government officials, especially in the security forces, would refrain from publicly calling for divine intervention. You can pray to God in your private life, as I'm sure many people do. But saying that publicly, I'm sorry, it's completely unacceptable.
Dr. Bati?
A number of issues here that I think we need to compartmentalize and try to analyze. The first is this habitual, strange resort to blaming God for Nigeria's problems and dragging him into every problem that affects Nigeria. It's not new. It's been there. It's been a perennial affliction. Every little thing, they call on God. Every little thing is God. It's a divine intervention. It's divine intervention that has done this. No, it's absolute nonsense. I recently wrote a foreword to a book by Father George Husani, still on more years eaten by the locusts in Nigeria. And one of the chapters in Father George Husani's book is about how Nigerians call God's name in vain. And his argument in that chapter in that book is that, look, God is not our problem in Nigeria. The problem with Nigeria are human beings. The problem with Nigeria is leadership. The failure of those who are enjoying privileges on behalf of the people who are occupying positions and exercising power, their failure to provide the leadership that is necessary. The most ridiculous thing that I have seen in recent times is that on Easter Sunday, the Minister of Defense, General Magashi, whom members of the House of Representatives have been urging President Muhammadu Buhari to remove from office due to incompetence, he mounted the pulpit. He said he was delivering Easter message to the troops. And he was saying that we should call on God prayers. And it's prayers that will help us. That in itself is an admittance, an admission of incompetence and failure. The Minister of Defense of Nigeria saying we should call on God. Okay, he said some other intelligent things about religious harmony, about religious cooperation in the context of Easter. But God is not going to come down to come and solve the problem of ISWAP and Boko Haram. The military will have to do their own bit. And the political authorities must summon the willpower to make sure that the military establishment is placed in a position to be able to do so. And the police, to the extent of the incompetence of the police, that it can, be part of the equation. So I find it very difficult. Nigeria is probably the only country in the world where the Minister of Defense on Easter Sunday will be offering a sermon. And yet when a priest like Matthew Hassan Kuka, offers a homily, he is attacked. He is accused of hatred. He is asked to shut up. But a Minister of Defense can offer a sermon on Easter Sunday. So I find that contradictory. I think we should just focus on the issues. I don't know any country where God descended from heaven to come and help people who have been given responsibilities to solve their problems. Now, the same offense committed by General Magashi was committed by Professor Zulum, who incidentally is a man that has been praised, endlessly for his commitment, for the seriousness that he has shown as governor of Borno State. He too was talking about divine intervention. People should stop blaming God. They should blame themselves. 2, the 35,000 persons that were told, have surrendered in Borno State. Well, Zulum says it's because of divine intervention. But we have issues with this demobilization, rehabilitation, all the protocols. But you see, it has not worked. It's not a strategy that has worked. And even if 35,000 persons have surrendered in Borno State, I hope we will not pursue the old strategy of giving them jollof rice, uniform, and a pepper soup. People who have committed murder, who have killed, should be made to answer for their crimes, because there should be a reasonable assessment of the process so far, which has not yielded any truth. Another thing that happened over the weekend is that the military, through General Magashi, praised themselves. They say, well, they are doing well in the Northeast. They say they've been able to neutralize people in IPOB and Eastern Security Network people in the southeast of Nigeria. But how about problems all over the country? Insecurity challenges. That has now forced INEC to come forward to say, well, they are not too sure. Well, this was Mikey Guinea, the resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, saying, if these security challenges continue, some constituencies will not be able to hold elections. And Chief Afe Babalola, senior advocate of Nigeria, has also said that, look, maybe we should postpone the 2023 elections. Chief Afe Babalola, SAN, is saying that, in fact, an interim government should be put in place because Nigeria needs a new people's constitution, to be able to move forward, to create a new order. Where I don't agree with most of the things that Chief Afe Babalola said, but he's not the subject right now, and he has a right to hold his own opinions. The third part of it is Hope Uzodimma. Where is he governor again? Where is he governor? I've forgotten. Okay, he's governor in Imo State. Sometimes you don't remember because you don't even know what these people are doing. He went to a wedding ceremony, and he was saying that, look, people should stop criticizing President Buhari, that the people who are criticizing him, they don't know what they are saying about insecurity, that security challenges in the country are politically motivated, that no house of a PDP member in Imo State has been attacked by anybody. Okay, does he want PDP members to have their houses attacked? So we should refrain from partisanship in this discussion, the residue, what we can hold on to, is that there are security challenges in this country, challenges that may threaten Nigeria moving forward, the 2023 elections. And when people raise the issues, government officials, those who are benefiting from government at this moment, should not think that it is their duty to be sycophantic and try to protect their principle, or to heap the blame on God. God has suffered too much in the hands of Nigerian leaders. Can we give God some respite and focus on our own failures?
So, you see, in all of this, I'm not surprised. I think it was Francois de la Rochefoucauld, the French thinker, that said, hypocrisy is the homage vice pays to virtue. And that's what's happening in our society. We are very hypocritical. God is our problem. Why blame God? But there are super Tucanos that you call the game changer. Why hasn't he changed the game? But you have a very good military troop that brought about peace in Liberia and some other parts. Why blame God for that? Why blame God for lack of your political will, which the governor of Kaduna State was saying that, oh, I'll have to bring in mercenary. Is it God that made the bandits say the government knows what we want? Is it God that said that? Is it God that made it in such a way with all the billions we spend on military, hardware and infrastructure, we cannot rescue people that have been kidnapped for over 20 days after the Kaduna bombing? We have drones, we have satellites, we have technology and science. We can do a reconnaissance measure and rescue those people. America came to our backyard here. They rescued their own cities from these same bandits. We saw the technology. We can ask for help. But what do? We become hypocritical and call on God. Just like we're thanking God because 35,000 terrorists came out of their camps and surrendered, when we know their surrender is a strategy. And it begs the question, how many terrorists do we even have in this country? Because when they profile the bandits, they say they've got about 20,000 of them ragtag here and there. But we've got 35,000 and counting, minus the other 10, 15,000 that have surrendered before. Goodness me, these terrorists have they have their own country in our country now. So is it God that caused all of this? Is it God that took away the political will from fighting all of this? Is it God that took away the sense and the brain we need to have? Is it God that took away the military training that the defense minister, a former major general retired, is supposed to have? You see, we have developed a culture of failure and incompetence. We don't tell ourselves the truth. And you see, whatever strategy we devise to defend our culture of failure and incompetence just is tantamount to stupidity when we speak. I'll tell it to you, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. Except we change culture and do what is right and follow the solutions and most importantly have the political will, we'll keep wallowing in disbelief and calling God when God has said to us that he has given us the solutions. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rotus, Michael, Adesuwa, and Aaron to give us updates on Africa global business, COVID-19 and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us the African business update. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Sundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Social media, we've got to be careful about social media and the things that go on there because a lot of it just isn't true. Also going to be hopping into maintenance fees and why people just froth at the mouth when they hear bank fees. So there is a video online of an individual in front of a Fidelity Bank that's playing music, and he's got a big microphone and he's protesting. There was a tweet that claimed that this gentleman with the microphone and the music band is protesting bank fees that he was charged apparently by Fidelity Bank, and they hadn't. Yeah, there it is. So that's the tweet. Now, this individual that put up this tweet has about 18,000, 19,000 followers. At the bottom of the screen, this video and the tweets have 153,000 views. And essentially, in fact, let's take a listen to the video. All right, so basically it's playing music and so but the thing is, that is false. That is not, it has nothing to do with fees or anything. But people reacted to it because once you see bank and you see fees, then everybody comes out the woodwork saying that I had this fee and that fee and so on. So actually, here's what happened, and I think we've got a summary here. There was a court case that happened between this union, and I have to get the name right because it's a really long name. This is the press release that came out from Fidelity Bank where they actually set the record straight and said that, hey, listen, this has absolutely nothing to do with owing anybody fees. This actually has something to do with a union. And I think we've got the summary here. So there's, what do they call? The Amalgamated Union of Public Corporation, Civil Service and Recreational Services Employees. So we've got a summary here where we actually break down how we actually got here. So if you take a look at the summary, it tells you that they got into they were owed monies. Their unions apparently were owed money by Anambra State Water Corporation and the Anambra State Waste Management. Oh yeah, here it is. So that the AUPCTRE is what they're called. It's a really long name. Amalgamated Union of Public Corporation, Civil Service and Recreational Services Employees. They had a case against the Anambra Urban Water Holding Corporation and Anambra Waste Management. They got a judgment on January the 11th to the tune of 471 million naira for entitlements for their workers. Then they also got a garnishment, and for legal folks, I guess you know what that is, where you actually follow up on an order in a judgment to collect money, garnish either wages or monies in an account. The monies in the accounts that were held by the Anambra Urban Water Holding Corporation and Waste Management, we just happened to be in Fidelity Bank. It could have been any bank, but it was Fidelity. So the garnishment order was put forward, but they appealed it. They appealed, that's the Anambra State Parastatals, appealed it on January the 12th. And they also got a stay of execution. And they also requested that, they just basically, hold on for 5 seconds. You can't get the money yet. Papers were served to the union, letting them know that, hey, look, you can't get the money yet. They've actually put a stay of execution and they've halted this. But they didn't listen. So they still went ahead and started picketing the banks, saying that they're the ones holding their money. But the banks had nothing to do with this at all. Now that's that. On the side of the fees, the way this thing spread and people just came out and started talking about fees. This needs to be put out there for a lot of folks. Account maintenance costs money. Anything to do with maintenance, maintaining your health costs money. Maintaining your wardrobe costs money. If you're married or in a relationship, maintaining your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, children, education, maintenance costs money. If you look now, we broke down some fees. The banks did make account maintenance fees, I think about 88 billion naira in the first 9 months of 2021. We've done the breakdown here. I think Fidelity was in 7th or 8th place, but your first column shows you how much they made in the first from Nairametrics. Zenith is in the lead, 24 billion. Access Bank second place, 16 billion. You can see in the second column how much they made in 2020. The third column shows the percentage jump from 2020 to 21. The fourth column, the last column on your right, actually, if you look at those red numbers on the right there, only 3 banks from 2019 to 2020 actually saw an increase in their account maintenance fees that they brought in. Only 3 of them. Everybody else made losses because of COVID. But the whole point is this. ATMs, if you use ATMs as a cost component of the operational costs of a bank, think about how long it costs to keep an ATM on from Monday through Sunday. Think about the paper that is used to print out the receipts to get your account balance. Think about the ink and the ink cartridges that are used to print out the ink, the letters on the paper on your bank balance. The power that this is, I understand ATMs need about 25 batteries for their inverters. The cost of power, the security at bank branches, everything else, it costs money to run a bank here, and that's why it is. That's why the fees are what they are. And there we go. That's our update.
Well,
Diesel
that's,
as well. There's also diesel
which
as
is
well.
why you now have those closing hours being changed because of the price of diesel. But that's an interesting perspective that you've shared, and I am sure that it will go some way towards balancing the general perception that bankers are generally greedy and are looking for ways to fleece you. Right. And I think what happened is also a cautionary tale of people rushing to social media to spread falsehoods. And I actually don't feel like being euphemistic this morning.
Right.
Lies. Essentially, you're lying on social media. There's no fact. And I like the way that the original tweeter, is that what they're called?
Yeah.
But used the word reportedly. Little disclaimer there. He wasn't saying it as a fact. But I guess, like you've said, a lot of people do feel sort of that they're getting fleeced. They feel like they're getting robbed by their banks because of all these reports of, dubious debits made on people's accounts. So that's why people rushed there. You said 150,000.
Yeah.
It struck a nerve. And so this job that you've done this morning will go a long way towards helping to balance the general impression. But yes, this tends to happen with a judgment creditor. And I guess in a way I cannot blame them. Yes, I'm a lawyer. Obviously I know that you have to see the full process exhausted. Yeah. There is a stay of execution, there's an appeal that must be discharged.
Right.
But judgment creditors go through absolute hell to get a judgment in their favor. The wheels of justice grind extremely slowly. You finally get your judgment, and then they're just not paying you. So then the next thing you do is just get a band, I get it. But then I'm sure justice will be done in the end. Let's just wait for the appeal to be discharged one way or another.
And that process can be... Okay.
You're gonna do it.
Okay, I wanted to comment on Fidelity Bank.
Yeah.
I think Fidelity Bank, they've tried to exonerate themselves, to distance themselves from the issues. Because the main issue is between the judgment creditors, that is the amalgamated union that you referred to. Yeah. The judgment debtors are the Anambra State Water Corporation and the Anambra State Waste Management Authority. Yeah. Now, under the rules of a garnishee order in Nigeria, the Fidelity Bank is like, a busybody. It's a third party to the proceedings. So they are saying that, look, it is not our deed. The matter has nothing to do with Fidelity Bank. These people are not protesting because Fidelity has any issue with this amalgamated union of civil service workers and technocrats in the Anambra State Civil Service. Right. And the order that amalgamated union got, there are two orders. There is what they call garnishee order nisi. There is absolute order, garnishee. Now, it is what has given them the right to go and congregate in front of the offices of the garnishee because they want to collect their money. Right. Okay? So the court, their counsel must have advised them that in this matter, you are just a third party. Let them go and resolve their problem. And since there is a stay of execution, and there is a pending appeal, until that is exhausted, until that process is exhausted, Fidelity Bank cannot be a victim in this matter. And that is why, the position in UBA versus Economy, is that garnishee orders are like election matters, sui generis. They don't necessarily follow, the same rules as some other court proceedings. So I think it's important that Fidelity Bank has come forward to say, no, this is not our deed. We are not involved. We're keeping money, yes, for Anambra State government, but the matter should be resolved between them. However, the judgment creditors, will exhaust the process and insist on being properly compensated on the orders that have been given by court at the end when the process is exhausted.
All right, legal 101 from
for me, I think, two things I'd like to talk about, the judicial process, how it grinds very slowly. And I think for us to be able to bolster businesses, we need to work on our judicial process.
Yeah, to be faster, right.
I have been a victim of this. I've taken somebody to court because he owed me quite some amount of money. We were in court for 3 years, finally got the judgment. To effect the judgment, Jesus Christ. In fact, I had to leave the money.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's then they came up with you can't get something and stop and put a freeze on the person's account. Then you get bailiff to go serve the judgment. Then the person doesn't.
That's the Sheriff Act.
The Sheriff Act. And it was going on, and I was paying bailiff every time they will serve. They would say we've served him, and it was a crazy process. So
me going to court for that very first time, I lost interest in the Nigerian legal system.
Right.
I can even now tell you the story of the shenanigans of the magistrates and the judges themselves. That's another, the way they adjourn cases, that's a case for another day. But, I know it's a fake news, but please, the banks too are corporates. Yeah, you have to charge to run your services and maintenance. But there are lots of illegal shenanigans going on in the banks.
What do you mean? Illegal like how? What do you mean?
Taking people's money unaccounted for, which is being perpetrated by bank staff.
Well,
there is that going on, Rotus, and please, if that happens to you, the first part, of course, should be the regulators, the CBN.
Okay.
You could make a direct report to the CBN. If, in fact, even things as small as reversal of a transaction, some banks go anal on you sometimes.
So
Except you involve the CBN, and the CBN too should make very strong recommendations to the banks, and they should serve the people right, and the CBN too should follow it closely as regulators. People are suffering. I'm not saying banks don't need to charge maintenance charges, but the banks are not saints. That's just all I want to say. We have to go now.
all right.
For updates on COVID-19, thank you so much, Rotus. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adeso Moro is here with us. Adeso, great to have you.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tunu, and good morning, Dr. Abati.
Morning.
Well, we now have 500 and morning, and it's good that we don't have any WhatsApp messages this morning, Tunu.
Right?
And
Yay.
Rufai, perhaps next time you should.
What's that?
Rufai, next time you should. I mean, we have 2 non-practicing lawyers next to you. Next time you're going to court, you might want to seek their counsel.
Oh, definitely. I can't pay for a lawyer again in my life. Once I have Dr. Batian Tundu here, I can never pay for any legal fees again.
Well, let's look at the data from COVID-19 very quickly this morning. 505 million infections have been recorded globally, 6.1 million deaths, and 11.1 billion vaccine doses. But let me tell you that those COVID-19 deaths globally may change drastically if the reports by the WHO is anything to go by. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's look at Nigeria, where the Nigeria CDC, or otherwise known as the NCDC, has released the latest epidemiological report for the COVID-19 pandemic for the 14th week, which covers 4th to 10th of April. Well, the report shows a decrease in testing across the country, and the number of new confirmed cases also decreased for that period. No surprises with decreased testing. You're most likely not to find what you're not looking for. And of course, in the period, more people were discharged. That's great news. But even better news is that in that period, we haven't seen any COVID-19 deaths. So let's go to that report. India has been accused of attempting to delay an effort by the WHO to revise the global death toll from COVID-19 after calculations suggested that India has undercounted its dead by an estimated whopping 3.5 million. India's official number of deaths from COVID-19, as I'm looking at the Johns Hopkins University tally, is 521,996. That's what they are reporting officially. But according to an in-depth analysis and investigation by the global body, WHO, the total is actually more than 4 million, which would mean that India would be by far the highest death toll, the country with the highest death toll from COVID-19 pandemic, and not the USA, as we are currently reporting. Well, the WHO has stated that it is now intending to publish that report this month, which is the revised data. And that revised data will actually show that there have been 15 million COVID-19 deaths, another 6.1 million we are reporting at the moment. The updated figure, WHO is said to draw these figures from excess death data, among other figures, and it will include those who died from other illnesses but could not get treatment because of COVID-19. So 15 million people, those who died with COVID, those died as a result of COVID, those who died because they could not get treatment because the hospitals were focusing on COVID-19. Meanwhile, Shanghai has announced its first death since the Omicron version of the coronavirus broke out in the Chinese city in March. Well, the 3 elderly people we are told died on Sunday. They all had underlying conditions and were unvaccinated, according to officials from China. Shanghai's low death rate from the current outbreak has been questioned by international health officials. And finally, to the U.S., where a federal judge has ruled that a national mask mandate on airplanes and other public transportation is not lawful. And that's overturning a Biden administration policy. The ruling yesterday by the U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball in Tampa, Florida, said health officials had exceeded their authority in issuing the mandate. Well, in its response, the White House says this ruling is disappointing. It also revealed that federal officials were evaluating the ruling. Back to you guys.
Surely there's going to be an appeal. That ruling has to be challenged. If not, it just completely makes a mockery of not just the Biden administration. It's even beyond that. It's even the entire CDC and all the efforts that they've made. It doesn't surprise me at all that the ruling occurred, given the, I'm going to try and be polite here, the sort of political climate of Florida and perhaps that individual judge herself, given how she was nominated. So that's no surprise, but it will be challenged, obviously, I imagine.
Well, if that happens, we'll see it. But the truth of the matter is that the mask rule, it's a cause of a great division in the United States. You'll recall that anti-vaxxers, those who call themselves Freedom Fund workers, had been challenging this consistently. And at a point, following a Supreme Court ruling, the Biden administration decided to lift mandates. That mandate was supposed to expire nationwide by April 18. But then the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and also the Transport Security Administration, responsible for, transportation within the United States, decided that when it was observed, as of last week, that the infection rate with the BA2 Omicron variant had gone up from about 25,000 per day to close to over 30,000 per day, that they needed to organize a study to see, how this will work. However, the airline, workers, the airline owners of America, then said, look, this is discriminatory. If there is a mandate that is supposed to be lifted by April 18 for the CDC and Transportation Security Administration to say you are going to extend it by 2 weeks, I think till May 3, then, of course, there were court cases. And then you had this Justice Kimball in the District Court of Florida, saying that, look, the CDC has exceeded its authority and that what it is proposing is illegal. So that's the position of the law. However, the irony is that in some states, like in Philadelphia, for example, concerned about the rising rate of infection with the BA2 Omicron variant, has given an order that masks should now be used indoors. But what is clear is that, look, there's great division across the United States, very partisan division as well, on whether the mask mandate should continue or not. Now, as for Shanghai, last week we discussed Shanghai when the authorities in Shanghai decided to tweak the COVID restrictions. But the truth of the matter is that city, the most populous and wealthiest city in China, has been under lockdown for about 3 weeks now, and people are complaining, people are protesting. Even the U.S. consulate has advised, his staff to just withdraw because they suspect there will be a lot of arbitrariness. China, of course, does not agree. So 3 people have died. If you look at the 3 people that have been reported dead, they are elderly people, because the vaccination rate in Shanghai among people over 60 is just about 62%, even if China itself reports up to about 90% vaccination rate nationwide. But we're told that these 3 persons that have died, they have underlying conditions, diabetes particularly, and that they have not been vaccinated. And I guess, the main extraction from that will be about, look, how people who are not vaccinated are vulnerable, whether they have underlying conditions or they are elderly or they are young. But the bigger concern in China at the moment is whether or not what is happening is going to affect economic growth. Initial figures in the first quarter have not indicated that, but in the long run, this is a concern. As China continues to insist on its zero tolerance, zero COVID strategy. Very quickly, you mentioned India. Well, it's not only India that is guilty.
Yeah.
WHO is saying that India has been lying about the figures. No, China has also been accused of lying about the figures because total number of deaths being reported by China since late 2019 is just a little over 4,000. Whereas you have the United States reporting 988,000 fatality rate as a result of COVID. As you speak, the United States is even preparing for the 1 million mark. You know, whether they will mark it or not remains to be seen. But, you know, India continues to insist that the fatality rate is just a little over 500,000. And WHO is saying that this is an underestimation. Because in April 2021, India had very serious issues. People were lying on the streets. You know, the hospital facilities were overstretched. And WHO is saying, from the reports by scientists and analysts and academic journals, the figure is way above that, and the underestimation is even above 3.5 million. So, but the Chinese authorities are saying they don't believe in the methodology that has been adopted by the WHO. So the fight is about the methodology. But I think that what the world needs to know is the truth. I think many countries will try to hide the figures. Why they do so, I guess, is obvious.
All right. Thank you so much, Adeso, for your time.